Hello, today we are going to be talking about Cabeza de Vaca, which means head of the cow. This is a Spanish explorer and the story of the things that he did when he came to Texas. Your first step before reading or listening to me read is to read these questions. These questions are what you're going to be looking for during the reading. The first question says, in what year and from what country did the Narvaez expedition sail? Number 2, what was the purpose of the expedition? 3, after the expedition's ships were carried off course in the Gulf of Mexico, where did they land? 4, where was Cabeza's raft blown ashore? How many years was Cabeza enslaved by the indigenous tribe? 5. How many members of the expedition made it all the way to Mexico City? 6. Define or find the definitions in the reading of these words: conquistador, colonization, castaways, chorocos, and flint. Last, my summary. Put your 4 to 7 word paragraph gist together to form a summary of the reading. In other words, what was this reading about? The reading says, establishing content, the misadventures of Cabeza de Vaca. In the spring of 1527, 5 Spanish ships left the port of Seville and set sail for the New World. The leader of the expedition was a conquistador named Pánfilo de Narvaez, who had a dream to establish settlements along the coast of the Gulf of Mexico. Among the members of his party was Cabeza de Vaca, a 37-year-old military veteran who would serve as the expedition's treasurer, or a person who handles money. After wintering in Cuba, Narvaez set out for northeastern Mexico. However, tricky currents in the Gulf of Mexico pushed the ships off course, and Narvaez, hopelessly confused, made an accidental landfall near modern-day Tampa Bay, Florida. So he didn't end up going where he wanted to. He wanted to go to Mexico, ended up in Florida. In a decision that would prove fateful, Narvaez ordered 300 men to leave the ships and march inland on a search for treasure. They would see, or they would never see, their ships again. So these people who started walking in Florida to look for treasure never saw their ships again. After 2 difficult months, Narvaez and his men arrived at Apalachee Bay with no treasure, no ships in sight, and little food. Narvaez knew only that he had to travel west to get to Mexico. He ordered that firearms be melted down to make tools to build 5 rafts, each large enough to carry 50 men. Every few days, one of the remaining horses was killed and eaten. They were starving, so they had to do what they had to do. The goal was no longer colonization or riches. It was survival. Carrying fresh water stored in hollowed-out horse legs, the expedition pushed off with Cabeza commanding one of the rafts. Several weeks into the journey, hunger and thirst began to take their toll. The men grew weak and suffered bouts of insanity. Somewhere near the Mississippi River, a strong wind blew the 5 rafts out to sea. After several desperate days, Cabeza's raft drifted back to shore. Historians now believe that Cabeza and his fellow castaways, or people who get lost and stranded, landed on modern-day Galveston Island, Texas. A second raft was blown ashore on the same island, which the men named, I'm not going to try to say that. The Island of Bad Luck is what this means. The other 3 rafts were never seen again. In a matter of days, 250 men had dwindled to 80. So from these rafts and things that they were building and trying to get to the new land with, Out of 250 people who got on the rafts, only 80 survived. Within months, the number 80 dropped down to 18. Within a year, it would be 4. So they went from 250 men to only 4 men, one of which was Cabeza. The island on which Cabeza landed in November 1528 was not deserted. It was populated by 2 Native American bands, each with about 400 people, each with its own language. Initially, the Indians acted as the survivors' caretakers. In time, however, they became slave masters. So they treated Cabeza and the other 3 men nice at first, but then the natives enslaved Cabeza and his men. After 2 years of misery, Cabeza managed to escape, joining a mainland band called the Churrucos. These are a group of natives. The Churrucos gave Cabeza freedom to trade their goods among nearby Indian groups, exchanging shells for hides and flint for animal hearts. These are coastal natives. Then, in the fall of 1532, Cabeza miraculously met up with the 3 fellow survivors who had been enslaved by other Indian groups. After 2 years of waiting for the right moment, the men were finally able to slip away from their Indian masters and walk to Mexico City. The journey would take 21 months, it's almost 2 years, and would require a special combination of skill, patience, and the goodwill of many Native Americans met along the way. Using evidence, we will figure out how Cabeza de Vaca survived. So, from this reading, you will now answer these questions. Make sure you are highlighting the reading for the answers to the questions only. If it's not an answer to the question, then it shouldn't be highlighted. You also have to write gists for each paragraph. You must write a gist for this paragraph. You must write a gist for this paragraph. You must write a gist from this area to here. And then you have a gist from historians all the way down. Lastly, you have one here and one here. So in total, you should have about 5 gists for each of the paragraphs. Remember, a gist is basically just a quick sentence that tells what's the most important thing from that section or that paragraph.